Welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. My name is Michael LeBlanc, and I am your host. This podcast is produced in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. Meet Albert Chow, the co-founder and CEO of Silk & Snow, a digitally native retailer of thoughtfully made sleep essentials, ranked as one of Canada's top growing companies by the Globe and Mail and Canadian Business, and joining Andy and Casper as a recent addition to Sleep Country's fantastic roster of brands, a great story of inspiration and perspiration, a true Canadian e-commerce, and soon-to-be physical retail success story. Let's listen in now. Albert, welcome to the Voice Retail podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
Good, Michael. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Well, thanks for joining me on the mic. Now, where am I finding you this afternoon?
So today is a Friday, and it's very warm in Toronto.
It's all relative, though. I just got back from Orlando, and it's not warm here, Albert. Let me tell you, it's warm there,
so
and it's warm. And I have friends in Texas who, they just passed like some crazy number of days above 100. So it's all relative. Let's get past the weather report here. Let's talk about you. Tell me who you are, a little bit about your background, and what you do for a living.
Yeah, so I am the CEO and one of the co-founders of Silk & Snow, which is a leading digitally native retailer of thoughtfully made sleep essentials. So a little bit about my background. I started in technology. One of my first careers was as a consultant for one of the largest technology and management consulting firms called Accenture. And for me, I always had a passion for retail, and I spent a larger part of the last 2 decades consulting for some of the largest Canadian retailers on technology-driven change, including Canadian Tire and Loblaws. So about 6 years ago, I met up with my co-founder, Kenneth, who is a longtime school friend of mine. And he also spent a lot of time in Canadian retail. And at the time, what we were seeing was a lot of sameness with the larger retailers. There was a move towards a lot of white labeling, mass production, fast fashion style of merchandising. And this is kind of what motivated Kenneth and I to found Silk & Snow in 2017. We were both in the Toronto area, as I mentioned earlier, and we really discovered the mattress industry almost accidentally, as we found that the entire supply chain for the mattress industry was kind of right here in our backyards. So we found everything from the manufacturers for pocket coils to textiles to people who make the comfort foams and cut and sew. So there was really a small ecosystem of mattress manufacturers that was located within a 5 kilometer radius within where we were located. So for us, we really decided to take this ecosystem of manufacturers to make a 100% locally sourced and made mattress. And by working with the heritage manufacturers and a local supply chain, what we felt was that we would create a higher quality product, and we would be able to stay closer to them and ensure that there was a lot more thoughtfulness and sustainability in their processes. And over the years, we've really taken this model and partnering with other heritage manufacturers to expand our product line in the sleep space. So in the last 4 years, we've been consistently ranked as one of the fastest growing companies in Canada. And at the beginning of the year in 2023, Silk & Snow was acquired by Sleep Country. So since then, we've joined the Sleep Country business as part of their senior leadership team.
Great business, right? I mean, they've just been doing so well. I don't think you're the only bright entrepreneurs that they've come into contact with and have joined the family. Let's take a couple of clicks back. So I think the origin is as well. I got a bunch of questions. I think some of the origin is. Did I read that you started with Kickstarter? Like, how did you? I want to delve into that. Like, so a couple of you obviously skilled in, as you said, more in technology with retail. So how did you come across, first of all, the idea that the sleepwear category specifically was tired? Can we say that in the sleepwear category? I guess that's a bit fun. But also that you create a product and then talk about how you raise the money for it.
Yeah. So I think the Kickstarter campaign that we ran was more out of necessity, because what we were finding was that even as we approached these small batch manufacturers, you still had to run a decent size PO in order to get your first order. And
Sure.
for us, we didn't know what this could be. We know that we could manufacture a good product. We're very much in touch with the supply chain, and we thought that we had a good product on our hands, but we didn't know what the reception from the customers would be. So we really used Kickstarter as a test, like a lot of other entrepreneurs did. It's probably there that we really discovered how to become marketers rather than people that knew how to build a website and operate a retail business. And we really learned from that what the community wanted, how we could get the right messaging across to really explain the product that we were producing, and really got our first little start from that campaign.
So let's talk about the scope and scale. Now, you're part of Sleep Country now, but what did you get to? Like, you talked about some core product and product extensions. Do you sell within Canada? Do you sell coast to coast? Do you sell beyond Canada? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so we currently market within Canada and the US, and we do a fairly good business on both sides. Over the years, like when we started, we were a mattress in a box company, and we were really in a very crowded space. Like, we joined the mattress industry in 2017, a few years after a lot of the larger brands started. So we discovered we weren't doing that well, and that was probably a blessing in disguise. We realized that it was a very crowded space and there was a lot of sameness. And one of the things that happened there was that it really forced us to think of how we would differentiate ourselves as a business. So over the years, we've really been able to apply that heritage manufacturing and small batch principle to expanding our assortment across a number of different products. So right now, we do an equal amount of business in selling mattresses to bedding to furniture.
Yeah, I see that as bed frames. Tell me about who your customer is. Who's shopping and who's buying? What do they look like, and what are they looking for? And are they looking for something different? And how did you find them? But mostly, tell me about your customers.
I would say that for our customers, especially in our industry, and this is a term that gets used a lot, a typical person that walks into a mattress store looking for a mattress, we consider a grudge purchase. So they're typically customers that don't want to be there. They hate doing it, but they have to do it because they're trying to solve for a particular problem. So an example would be their mattress reached the end of life, or they're having back pain. So it's very problem oriented.
It probably reached the end of life 5 years ago. Now they're just begrudgingly acknowledging it, right? That was the case for funny. It was the case for my wife and I. Were like, "How old's this mattress again? Because it really doesn't feel good." Next year.
Yeah, you sound like our typical customer. They tend to try to stretch it out a bit. But yeah, I think for us, we felt that that was a very unpleasant experience, and we wanted to kind of focus on a different type of shopping experience. So for Silk and Snow, we focus on more of an inspired purchasing experience where the customer really focuses on the aesthetic and the very thoughtful curation of our products. And we want to be aspirational and have the consumer focus more on the quality and the beauty of the aesthetic of our products rather than fixing a particular pain point. So I don't know if it comes across on the site, but one of the subtleties is that a lot of the products are a little bit more cohesive. We don't just randomly select colors that are on trend or that sell as individual products. We really want to focus on selling the entire space and curating a typical look so that the customer can come back and purchase the whole space rather than a particular product.
Yeah, I'm on your site now. It's great. It's quite well done. Not surprising, given your background, but also the merchandising is quite. It's quite nice. It's quite evocative in terms of merchandising around, as you said, that one look for the room. So that's super interesting. And how do you build business in the States? That's a competitive market. So talk about that a little bit, and then I want to get to what you're planning for the future. But let's just hang on that for a bit. How do you? A lot of people go to the States, and it's a little bit of a pure play killing ground if you're not careful. So talk about your success there.
It is. And I think a lot of D2Cs struggle with that because the cost of acquisition is so high. The logistics of getting set up there and the volumes you require are a lot higher. So for us, we've been able to inch into the US over the years very gradually. And I think what's kind of protected us is that we've been able to keep our cost of acquisition low. One of the problems with the mattress industry is that it's very expensive to acquire a customer. And a bigger problem is it's very difficult to get a customer to come back. Like if your product is good, they're likely not coming back for another 7 to 10 years to replace that mattress. And if you're lucky, maybe they have a second bedroom and they need that. But the repeat purchases are few and far between. And so for us, in the early days of us starting the business, we really made this conscious decision to focus on growing our brand through assortment and selling the entire space. And we do want to sell the mattress, but we also want to give you a reason to keep coming back. So we do really focus on the aesthetic aspect and the curation aspect of our product line to ensure that, once you have a Silk and Snow product or a Silk and Snow experience, there's a reason to keep coming back. And that I believe that repeatability of the customer and giving a reason for the customer to come back has really kept our cost of acquisition low. So yes, we do spend a lot in acquiring customers, but we do have them come back, and it's only helped us over the years.
So you're a digitally native vertical brand, I guess we could call it, or a digitally native retailer. Talk about your thoughts around brick and mortar. I think I saw that you might be actually getting into physical brick and mortar. Of course, your partners or Sleep Country is lots of brick and mortar stores. But what's your philosophy and how do you see brick and mortar fitting into your business model?
Yeah, so we've been very fortunate because we are digitally native. It's actually protected us a bit during the pandemic and allowed us to grow organically as a brand with a digital focus. However, what typically gets lost in a digital brand is you do have your products a bit commoditized with the sea of sameness that you compete with other brands. And as I mentioned earlier, we really play in a very crowded category. I believe that bricks and mortars is a important part of our growth strategy. A lot of our products are inspired purchases, and they are still very tactile in nature. Even though in our space there's a lot of e-commerce companies, I believe that 85% of the purchases still happens in bricks and mortar. And I just believe that on the e-commerce side, it's just part of the journey. What we're finding is that a lot of customers are discovering your brand online, but if they could choose, they would rather purchase and finish the purchasing journey at a physical location. So for us, I think it is an important part of our growth strategy, and it is something that we are focused on growing as a channel.
I mean, it's interesting listening to you describe how you're thinking about bricks and mortar, because some would approach it as in it's going to help me have a different cost of customer acquisition, right? So it's hard to get a lot of leverage out of the platforms anymore, right? It's hard to do it better than anyone else. So maybe if I find the right real estate in the right mall, and maybe that'll lower my cost of customer acquisition because the mall basically has to pick up some of the heavy lifting to do that, or maybe you're on a main street, or some might say it's more a showroom. It's more a media play to get people to buy online. How do you look at those two things? Is it that and yes, or is it, listen, I want people to come in here, be inspired, and walk out with a translation? Like, is your key metric of a store or stores, sales per square foot, or do you have some other kind of metrics in mind that tie more organically or holistically to customer acquisition and lifetime value?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like if I kind of break up the 2 points, what we've been tracking is that people that do interact with our brand at a physical level, they do convert a little bit better. Or actually, I shouldn't say a little bit better. They convert a lot better.
A lot better. Yeah, right.
So a physical space to us is a conversion tool. It definitely resonates with the customer more, and it's a much easier purchasing journey. And so that's what we've seen in our data. The other thing is that, and I know, Michael, you're from the Toronto area, so you must have come across like a mattress out of home ad from one of the other brands. And
one or 100, sure.
That's right. That's right. And I think that's a very expensive game to use traditional media. But
it's hard to win at. I mean, it's like a utility almost. I mean, it's just very hard to win. You're right.
I think it's a tool that you can grow very quickly and gain awareness very quickly, but it is very difficult and hard to measure to get a return on that. But I think on a physical store level, I mean, we're paying for out-of-home ads the same amount that you would pay for some of these rents that we're considering at a physical level. So we do consider it as also an awareness play, and that it does drive awareness for the brand. But on top of that, we have the added benefit of a conversion play as well.
So how many locations would you foresee in the next 24 months in Canada, for example? Are you thinking a handful or major acquisition, or are you still kind of figuring out what kind of physical presence is the right fit for you guys?
If I gave my number, I might scare my Sleep Country colleagues, but I think for now, the way we're looking at it is that we are focused on opening up our first store within the next 3 months. But
gotta start somewhere, right? Gotta start somewhere.
That's right. And we really are looking at it to kind of test the model of what will work and what won't. But by the work you've done in your past career, that running stores is a very different thing than running websites. I think it's a much longer game. It's there's a much more of an operational aspect to it that needs to be scaled out. But I think it will take time. But ultimately, like if we're just doing it for the one store, it's not going to be a success. The idea is that we do have a scalable model here, and that we figured out what's the perfect model to work with.
Fantastic. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about product innovation, what innovation looks like, product development. Great retailers are always having an eye on the future. How do you guys approach it? What's your tradecraft of creating the next popular product? Do you have customer feedback, intuition, great merchants, the alchemy of all those things? Talk about how you approach innovation and product growth and merchandising.
Yeah, so I think we approach it in two ways. We never kind of go too far off from what's core to our business. So we every year we have a product roadmap that we continue to expand our product into adjacent categories. So we wouldn't be selling mattresses today and then tomorrow selling suitcases, but we do try to inch forward and kind of give a reason for our customers to come back. I think for our kind of what's core to our products is just the thoughtfulness that goes into each of the designs, and especially the aesthetic, and ensuring that it's cohesive, so that if they buy a Silk and Snow product, that when they come back and purchase another one, that the aesthetic of the products do work together. And I think more importantly, one of the differentiators for us is just our sourcing. We tend to favor partnering with heritage manufacturers who have a history of making quality products and have a very ethical and sustainable manufacturing process. So, for example, our entire bedding line is actually manufactured in Portugal, and we don't use the same mass production manufacturers that a lot of our competitors use. It also allows us to stay closer to our supply chain and have better control of the quality and the end product.
Sure.
But sometimes it does give us problems in that these aren't manufacturers that can easily scale as well. So we've had our share of supply chain issues with this type of model.
Yeah. Great country for textiles, right?
That's right.
When I think of Portugal. Now, I'm looking at your site, just since we're talking product, I see flax linen bed sheets. Tell me about, I've never heard of flax before. It's 100% European flax. So what's the, get excited about the product. What's the features and benefits of putting flax into linen bed sheets? What do you get out of that, and why did you make that choice?
I think when it gets to the nuances of bedding, a lot of it is texture based. Flax linen is a bit of a different type of material that is a little bit more airy and textured, and it also gives you this lived-in look that a lot of our customers really love, and it's very on trend. But on top of that, I think it's a very natural fiber, and grows without a lot of usage of water. And that's also kind of the eco-consciousness that goes into a lot of our product development, is that it is a little bit more thoughtful and sustainable, and something that is very much on brand for a lot of our product line.
And are you hearing that from the customer, that they're looking for products that offer that? Because, we read surveys where people say they're looking for certain things from companies, and they seem to sometimes act differently. But do people care where the product's made when they're talking to you? Is that a big selling feature for you? And is that a I don't know if it's sustainable, but is it a differentiator for you in the market?
It's definitely a differentiator, because I think it's just so much harder to do to be thoughtful about your supply chain and really know where your products are coming from. It requires you to be really direct with the relationship with the manufacturer. In terms of how our customers perceive it, I think the black and white answer is they care. If given two products, they would choose the one that's a little bit more thoughtful and transparent.
Two equally priced products. I mean, you're going to get a price premium. I mean, you're a specialty retailer, so there's a bit of a price premium at some way, shape, or form, right? That you need to get and that you deserve, right?
Yeah, and I think the way we look at it is it is going to be at a slightly at a premium, but we will cater to the customers that are looking for something that's a little bit more unique and artisanal. Where we probably don't want to play is kind of in that same sea of sameness, where if they're just looking for a commodity purchase, like regular,
lots of places to shop for that. Yeah, lots of places to shop for that.
Amazon, and that's somewhere where we would never want to compete in anyways, and I think it just kind of goes against our values of just being methodical and thoughtful about our products.
Well, you've had quite the journey, so let's move to advice. So what advice would you have to fellow entrepreneurs and retailers listening, the brands? And I'm going to frame it in a 2 starts and 1 stop, and the kind of thing is, start doing these 2 things, and if stop doing the following thing, I've learned it either doesn't work, or I've seen other folks doing it and I don't think it's going to work. So just in the frame of giving advice, what should people think about and start doing?
Yeah, so I think with a lot of younger brands, I would probably suggest that they start thinking of themselves as retailers. A lot of young brands start off as e-com these days, and because it's a low barrier of entry, and a lot of e-com startups tend to think of themselves more as digitally native or tech focused. And I feel that
kind of as eschew, if I could use that word.
That's right.
Physical retail. Right. It's like, hey, no, I started this digitally native and we're not about retail, but I think it may be increasingly a distinction without a difference, right?
Yeah. And I think as you grow, you tend to encounter challenges that are what a typical traditional retailer would face. And everything from growing your product assortment to looking at your business as more of an omni-channel, to how to get your customer acquisitions costs down to something that's a little bit more sustainable. So I feel like there's a lot of D2C businesses out there that are reaching that point, and it's probably good to start looking at that earlier rather than just focused on one particular channel.
Right. To have that mindset going in. Okay, that's your first start. Give me a second.
So I would say thinking about your brand identity. I know that it's saying the obvious, but it's important to have a real brand identity and know what your brand and product stands for. There is a lot of competition and sameness in any type of business, and those that don't have a brand identity will forever compete on price.
Okay. And I guess that would be similar to what should they stop doing? Don't compete on price, but any other tips or advice?
Yeah, I feel like lately this is more of an issue. A lot of D2C companies in the past have had the access to very cheap capital. And I would say stop worrying about what investors think at this point. I think every business should look at growing their business in a sustainable manner and as organically as possible. Being profitable never goes out of style. And most acquirers these days, they are looking at profitability and a path to profitability.
Yeah.
And consumers speak with their wallets. So any profitable business would also suggest that they have a differentiated brand from the rest of their competitors. So I would suggest that it's probably a good idea to just stop worrying about what investment or investors think.
Right on. All right. Well, what's next? I mean, it's a funny question it's a funny question sometimes when I ask fast growing and fast moving retailers, because everything's always next. You've talked about looking to open a store, but on your whiteboard at the head office, what's next for you guys?
Yeah, I think there's always like a million things you want to do, but you really got to prioritize what the team focuses on. So I think for us, testing a physical presence and a physical store is probably the number one priority in the next 3 months. But I think outside of that, we just continue to look for interesting ways to expand our product line, and we're constantly listening to the customer and trying to understand what they're looking for. So over the next, I would say 3 to 6 months, we do have a number of exciting product launches that we're excited to get out there.
Well, I'm sure everyone will be excited to watch now they know a little bit more about the brand. Albert, thanks for joining me on the Voice of Retail podcast. It was great to meet you and hear your perspectives. Congratulations on your success so far, and I look forward to that store opening up, and that'll be a great new adventure for you and the team. So once again, thanks for joining me on the pod, and I like I said, wish you much continued success and a great rest of your summer.
Great. Thanks for having me, Michael. It was fun.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Voice of Retail. If you haven't already, be sure and follow on your favorite podcast platform so new episodes will land automatically each week. And be sure to check out my other retail industry media properties, Remarkable Retail Podcast with Steve Dennis, and the Global E-Commerce Leaders Podcast. Last but not least, if you're into barbecue, check out my YouTube barbecue show, Last Request Barbecue, with new episodes each and every week. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, Consumer Growth Consultant, President of M.E. LeBlanc Company Inc, Maven Media, and keynote speaker. If you're looking for more content or want to chat, follow me on LinkedIn or visit my website at meleblanc.co. Safe travels, everyone.